So you managed to create the 5th highest grossing movie of all time and you're not sure what to do next? You definitely want to find a way to not only extend the life of that film, but build on that financial success. A sequel is already in production, but there's got to be other things that can feed the hunger of all those rabid fans all over the world. Action figures, yes. Comics, already out there. Well, the only other choice is to create a milestone piece of animated film art, the most successful, the best American superhero animated series that has ever been made. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Batman the Animated Series. In 1990, Warner Brothers was celebrating the box office success of Tim Burton's Batman starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. The whole world had Batman fever, and the only cure was more Batman. A sequel was greenlit like immediately, and president of Warner Brothers Animation Gene McCurdy called a meeting to discuss some of the properties that Warner Brothers had available to be developed. Present were several of the production crew from Steven Spielberg's Tiny Toon Adventures, itself a repeat Daytime Emmy Award winner, including Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski. One of the properties discussed at the meeting that day was Batman. We doing it? Who's interested? Anybody got any ideas? Bruce Timm was a longtime animation veteran. He had worked on Black Star, He-Man, and She-Ra for Filmation. He worked on G.I. Joe. He worked for Ralph Bakshi and Don Bluth Productions. He even did some time at Deke working on The Real Ghostbusters. While he was a big comic book fan, he had never seriously pursued production on a Batman animated series, but that meeting provided all the spark he needed. He left the meeting and started drawing his Batman, his ideal, the kind of Batman he would most want to see in an animated series. Eric Radomski, background painter and designer, was at the same meeting and basically did the same thing. He went back to his desk, threw down some tonal background ideas, some moody, shadowy conceptual environments, and, as luck would have it, he and Bruce were essentially already on the same page. Gene McCurdy asked the two of them to create a fully animated conceptual short piece to showcase the look and tone they wanted to see, a proof of concept. Much to the surprise of Bruce and Eric, not only did the suits like the short and the vision for the series, but Gene asked them to go ahead and make 65 full-length episodes. They weren't just designing or art directing, they were going to be acting as the producers of the entire series. Bruce and Eric had a lot of experience working on toy-centric properties in the 80s, enough to know that that was not the kind of show they wanted to make, and they set that standard with their proof of concept right from the beginning. Guns and fighting and no punches pulled violence. Dark, gritty, different. They wanted to reach a slightly older audience than might have watched He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, or rather, they wanted to reach exactly those kids because they were teens and young adults now. Heck, they even hoped to bleed into the full-on, job-having, mature adult audience. Everyone who went to see the Batman movie in the theaters. Alan Burnett was brought on board as a writer and producer. Alan was 2 days from retirement, trying to wash his hands of this whole ugly business of animation. He was tired of the limitations of all the standards and practices. He'd spent years working on shows like The Snorks and Super Friends, Challenge of the GoBots, Galtar and the Golden Lance, The Smurfs, Gummy Bears, DuckTales, Tailspin, Spintails, Duck Bears. He did all of it. He was looking to do something a bit more intense. Yeah, Batman, that would be fun, sure, as long as it was full of gritted teeth and punching and considerably fewer talking ducks. Paul Dini was brought in as a writer and co-creator, laying much of the groundwork for the Bible, the do's and don'ts of the series. He'd been doing animation just as long as anyone else involved, if not longer. Scooby-Doo, Dungeons & Dragons, Mr. T, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Ewoks. Paul immediately recognized the direction Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski wanted to go in. Dark, cinematic, gritty, noir. He was in. The production design leaned heavily into the American Art Deco aesthetic of the 1930s and 40s as opposed to the Gothic look of the Tim Burton movies. The result, however, was the same as the movie, a Gotham City that felt old and new at the same time. It's a Gotham that doesn't exist in real time or place. The cops had Zeppelins, but Batman still had the Batmobile, and people still had television and phones and stuff. They wanted the whole thing to feel like it had just been ripped out of a crime novel from the 40s. They looked back to Max Fleischer's Superman cartoons for inspiration. The lighting, the movement, the simplicity of the design for the characters and the environments. Heck, everything down to title cards and graphic design. Timm and Radomski used Danny Elfman's score from the Batman movie when they produced their proof of concept. They never dreamed that they would be able to use his music for the actual show. It wasn't in the budget. They reached out to Shirley Walker, who had composed music for the Flash live-action television show and who just happened to have worked with Danny Elfman himself on that Batman score. They were able to create a variation of Elfman's Batman theme for the show and took an unheard of step of writing a unique musical score for every episode in the series. While the main theme echoed the Elfman piece, the episode scores drew inspiration again from the 1940s. Batman was played by Kevin Conroy, fresh out of Juilliard.
Ho, 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 look out, we got a badass over here.
He was getting steady work doing stage performance and various television work. After listening to around 500 voices, auditioning 120, casting still hadn't found their Batman. Kevin was looking to supplement his income, and his roommate, a casting director, asked if he would be interested in trying out for Batman, so he gave it a shot. Joker was played by Mark Hamill after the role was originally given to Tim Curry. Curry developed bronchitis during the original recording sessions, but that was kind of an excuse by the production to get him out. Some of the production crew liked him, others thought, he's fine. The bronchitis forced them to find someone else, and quickly. And not only quickly, but they needed to be able to match Tim's cadence because several of the episodes had already been animated to his voice.
Kiss me, fat boy.
Mark Hamill had come in to do a guest appearance after asking his agent to get him involved in any way. It was a project he had been following and really wanted to be a part of. He thought it would be great if he could find a way to give life to one of Batman's other Rogues Gallery characters, like maybe Two-Face or Hugo Strange or something. When asked to audition for the role of Joker, he thought, just from a PR standpoint, there was no way they were going to cast Luke Skywalker in the role of this Joker, so he went in with nothing to lose. He had fun with it, he let it get dark and weird, and in the end, it worked and they loved it. Over the life of the show, other celebrities would lend their voices to the production, including Ron Perlman as Clayface, Richard Mall as Two-Face, David Warner as Ra's al Ghul, Mark Singer, Adrienne Barbeau, Frank Welker, and lots of others. Batman the Animated Series premiered on September 5th, 1992 as part of regular afternoon broadcasting, but in an attempt to drive home the point that this was no regular kids cartoon, it also played Sunday nights in primetime at 7 p.m. opposite 60 Minutes and America's Funniest Home Videos. It didn't last in that slot because, I mean, how do you compete? While most of the show pulled inspiration from the decades worth of pre-existing Batman comics and media, there were some original creations that expanded the cast and the mythology. The most notable by far was Harley Quinn. Intended to be included in one episode as one of Joker's gang for that particular caper, the crew and fans ended up liking the dynamic between the two criminals so much that she was brought back and ultimately found her way into mainstream DC Comics continuity. From 1992 to 1995, a total of 85 episodes aired as 2 seasons. The last 15 episodes put more focus on the newly formed partnership of Batman and Robin. To drive that point home, the show itself was officially retitled The Adventures of Batman and Robin. It would eventually lead to the show being refreshed in 1995 with a new show called The New Batman Adventures, or unofficially, according to the DVD releases, Batman the Animated Series Volume 4 from The New Batman Adventures. Batman the Animated Series was so popular, so revolutionary, so successful, it kicked off a shared DC animated universe that would go on to include Batman the Animated Series, The New Batman Adventures, Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited, a multimedia empire that would run through 2006. Batman the Animated Series won 4 Daytime Emmy Awards. It spawned a theatrical release called Mask of the Phantasm in 1993 and a direct-to-video release called Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero in 1998. There was a long-running series of comics tied to the show called The Batman Adventures that ran nearly a decade longer than the show itself, only being canceled when it was time to roll out the next era of animated Batman with the show The Batman, which was a complete reboot of the brand identity and continuity. Batman the Animated Series only ran for 2 seasons, 85 episodes. They've proven to be some of the most important, the most loved stories in the nearly 80-year history of the character. While it was influenced by a lot of what came before it, it has been even more influential to all the stuff that came after it, especially animation, especially superheroes in animation. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, share this video, and if you're in the position to help the channel grow, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy and let us know in the comments down below what your favorite era of Batman is. For me, it's this, Batman the Animated Series all day long. Or Lego Batman. And now I can't decide. It's whichever one I saw last, which is this.